Right guys, this is a fishing video on a place called Courtmacsherry, and it's in southwest Ireland, and it's somewhere where you can go where it's pretty damn good. There's boat fishing here and there's land-based fishing here. Cork Airport is about, I don't know how far it is actually, so I know it's €80 to get you to your hotel, so it's not that far. It's probably about 50 miles or something like that, I'm guessing, probably less than that. But anyway, this is one spot in the bay, and this is called Barry's Point, and they've got fishing for pollock, mackerel and dogfish off there, so spin fishing, a bit of bottom fishing as well, might pick up a conger. Quite exposed little spot there, so you know, you probably don't want to be going there on a rough day, depends which way the wind's blowing. Southerly, you're probably going to get it right on the nose there. You can probably fish around the sides for wrasse and stuff like that. In the bay, you can pick up some small hardback crabs to use for wrasse fishing on any of these headlands. Really, I would say, be pretty good. Obviously, it's sort of the top half of the tide for your sort of your pollock, and you might pick off a bass. But yeah, that's a spot you can go. I think in that little bay there, it's called Blind Strand in there, and fish for dabs, rays and plaice in that spot just there. So yeah, if you're fishing for your plaice, you want your lug harbour, ragworm and lugworm. There's not so much ragworm there apparently, but there's plenty of lugworm beds there, and there's some seriously good bait. So for your plaice, you want sort of smallish sort of hooks. Your dabs, small sort of hooks. Size 1 is a good hook, I think, for that sort of thing. So there's another spot here called Quarry Point, that's called, which is the next headland down there. And again, fishing for pollock and mackerel on the incoming tide, dogfish and bass. So, you know, if there's a good surf running in that area there, the water's quite clear, you'll probably, you know, bass like it when there's a good surf running. Or in an estuary where there's a lot of tide, certain parts of the tide, you'll find a good bass in there as well. So we'll talk about a bit about sort of Courtmacsherry sort of harbour estuary there, and there's some good places to go for a good bass there. Now, this is a beach, Broad Strand Bay it's called, and that's fishing for bass, flounder and ray. So again, for your bass fishing there, either at night time, fishing live sand eel would be a good method, I would say. Any of them beaches in Ireland at night, live sand eel, alleged live sand eel, just chucked literally 10 yards out with a carp rod or something like that, and a small running sinker, and a short hook length, one single hook, and just a hook with a biggish barb, and maybe just stick a little bit of foam over the hook to stop the sand eel from shaking off. Or you go through the nostrils and then tuck it into the belly to stop them getting away. Just a very gentle flick, just a few metres out on an incoming tide, just letting it slosh around. It's a very effective technique for bass at night. This is another headland here. This is called Land Point, fishing for pollock, mackerel, bottom fishing for dogfish, ray and dabs. So for your dabs, you want your small hooks, and bass as well as talking about, so maybe a alleged peeler crab. Yeah, if you can get a live mackerel, you might want to sort of put a live mackerel banging around on the bottom there, let it drift around. It's whatever you think where you are is going to fish the best with the wind and what the tide's doing, what baits you can get hold of. If you want to put a bait on the bottom for a bass, a good bass, peeler crab. Good sized peeler crab, and that'd be my best method for a bass, or a lugworm, big lugworm bait for a bass rolling around out there. Another area there where my cursor's sort of banging around is Courtmacsherry Strand, bass, flounder and sea trout. So if you're going for your sea trout, you want your spinning gear on. So you'll pick off your bass like that, you'll may pick off a bonus sea trout. So spinners up to sort of silver spinners, Abu Toby, like 20 gram, sort of Abu Toby, that sort of a lure. Just bouncing over the bottom there. And yeah, so for sea trout, I would say an incoming tide. For a sea trout, bass sort of, the top of the tide or the bottom of the tide. There's a pier there, another fishing spot, Courtmacsherry Pier. So conger at night there. I wouldn't say you get big conger, you get double figure conger there, I would imagine. And again, flounder and bass banging at the estuary there. But anywhere along that bank there where you can see it drop off, and you can see there's lots of little rocks and kelp and things like that. There'll be lots of crabs in there, and the big old bass will be banging around in there, nuzzling around, eating those green crabs. So yeah, very, very, very sort of good spot for a biggish bass. So, lugworm digging along there as well. There'll be plenty of lugworm digging as well. Very effective bait for flatfish. And there's a few other spots along here. So there's lugworm digging along there, bait collecting. And there's another good spot. Talked about schoolhouse, fishing at the channel for bass and flounder. Late ebb to early flood best. Specimen bass and flounder recorded there. So yeah, there's lots of options. If you're not going out in the charter boat because the weather's called it off or whatever, there's plenty of options inland. There's some mullet fishing there as well. There's a place called Timo League, which is like the next village in, and that area is bottom fishing and drifting for bass in a pool below the river bridge, Argadine River Bridge. And it is, I'm just trying to think where it is. It's where my cursor's now going. Look, just in that village there. You should zoom in a minute. And there's it's called Argadine River Bridge and in channel. 2 hours either side of flood best. Float fishing for mullet from Key Wall and bottom fishing for flounder. So with the mullet, it's sighting the mullet and then going after them. For me, Freshwater Tactics, light lines, gear, floats is the way to go. It's almost like you want to be roach fishing. And I'll be honest with you, maggots are probably a really good bait for shy mullet. You could try raw steak. You could try a little bit of ragworm. You could try bread. You just have to sort of just try your luck. It's all a bit like carp fishing, float fishing on the surface. Have a carp controller, small hook with a tiny little bit of bread on it, and just having it sort of float and suspended. Put a little bit of polystyrene near the hook, and just keep the hook high. And to see if you can get a take like that, you might want to get a very small sabiki rig and just bait it up with tiny little bits of fish, bits of red meat, steak, or mincemeat even. Try that sort of stuff. I've even seen the mincemeat minced up with someone's used curry powder before. You just got to try a few things. The old mullet. Yeah, you really want to go and walk into the tackle shop, say, right, I'm after a mullet, what's the best bait? And they'd probably go straight to the point, say, this is what you want to be using. This is what's going to work. But they're quite shy fish. Saying that, they do get them on a spinner from time to time. So all this area in here, good for bait digging. So you want to bring your bait fork, and there's the flounders there, flatfish, you can size 110 hook, something like that. Now there's another spot on the other side. It's called Burren Pier, and it's a little bit of a way round. So if you are getting hold of a hire car, I'm sure there'll be somewhere you could hire a car or a vehicle of some description, just so you can get around a bit, just for a few days. And it's that pier there where my cursor is. Again, that's right into a channel there. And as the tide starts picking up, fishing off that pier would be pretty damn good. Into the channel, fishing for your bass. Bottom fishing for bass and flounder. First 3 hours of the flood, best. Specimen flounder recorded here. So, yeah, some monster flatfish and bass in there. So anywhere really, anywhere sort of, if you've got your beach rods with you, you can cast them, just fish anywhere, park up anywhere and fish into that channel. It doesn't look very snaggy at all. Lugworm and sand eel, crab baits, peeler crab baits. So yeah, just trying to think of another spot. There's some good bait collecting there as well. Yeah, so just around the corner from there, I think is a place for where they can get sea trout. I think. Yeah, so spinning and bottom fishing over the sand for bass and occasional sea trout. So you might get a bonus sea trout. So if you're talking sea trout, for me, you need spinners. You need metal spinners. You know, basically your bass you can get on plugs and things like that. But if you want to run into a sea trout, I would seriously recommend bass fishing with your 20 to 30 gram sort of hex ticers like Dexter wedge, or just like a typical sort of trout sort of spoons, and metal sort of spoons. I don't know what it is with sea trout. Sea trout I've caught overseas always go to a very shiny metal spinner. So you'll run into your bass with that as well. So that you'd be surprised. You've got to focus on a certain type of lure, which will get you the fish. I think if you were fishing plugs like you were for bass, I don't think you would get the sea trout. You may do, but I'd be a lot more confident fishing a solid metal for a sea run trout. No question. I spent many hours fishing overseas, and I've probably caught up to sort of 5 to 8 sea trout, some up to £8, and I was getting them on a really heavy metal spinner, 55 gram. I was actually fishing for salmon, so that was a bycatch, and just letting it bounce along the river near the river mouth, and bang, and there they are. So yeah, that's my sea trout fishing. Talk about bottom fishing for trout. So, yeah, I know for salmon, some people buy those little jars of anchovies and they wrap all them on with cotton around the hook, and you can get salmon like that. Wouldn't be surprised if you can get a sea run trout like that. I'm trying to think what bait they used to use for salmon. Pilchard. Used to use pilchard. Now, just talking about here, this is another headland here around the other side. It's called like the Old Head or Black Head. You can drive around. There's a golf course at the end there. Nice parking. You can park, and you can literally follow the trail and walk down. It might be a bit of a trek, but you'd be some good sort of wrasse conger spinning off there. Lovely on a hot summer's day if you're not out on the boat. And there's a good charter boat operation there in the harbour there, and they do package holidays. So, we're talking about some brilliant land-based fishing there, but there's equally, I'm not being funny, you really won't be out in a boat because there's some poor people, there's all sorts out there. And, this is that trail I'm talking about near the golf course. Park your car up, and depending on which way the wind is blowing, you'd want it quite calm there, but that's a very exposed headland there. And you'd be, even on a calm day, you'd get a big rogue wave there, so you want to be a bit careful, or fish with a mate. Don't want to take any chances there. But yeah, there'd be some pretty good conger eels and all sorts fishing off that area there. There'd probably be a real big ballan wrasse as well lurking in that area, as well as the cool fish and the pollock. But yeah, it would be a magical 7 days, that's for sure. Any time of the year would be pretty good, I would say. I would obviously from May through till sort of early October, I would recommend going. I think September would be a nice time of year to go there. Any of the summer months would be good for your boat fishing, for wrecking and things like that. And but yeah, even early sort of late April, May would be quite good. I'd say September would be pretty good. There, you'd probably even get some tuna. You'd probably even sight some tuna.